Hello, everybody. Welcome to the engine room. We'll give everybody a few minutes to trickle in because I know it's exactly on the dot, noon o'clock here in Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern. Just a reminder for those of you who are coming in that we do this every month on the last Thursday of the month, my favorite Thursday of the month because I get to hang out with Charles. So always at the same time, noon or 3 p.m., depending on where you are, or somewhere in between. So put it on your calendars and join us. What the engine room is, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is our monthly sort of deep dive into ConductorOne. So we take a chance to demo the product and focus on a certain capability or use case to give folks a more kind of like under the hood, behind the scenes practitioners look at how ConductorOne works. My name is Brittany. Product marketing here at ConductorOne, and I am just your MC. I will not be your host. Your host is the fabulous Charles Kramer, our solutions engineer. You can see him waving there. So we'll be jumping in with Charles shortly. But like I said, maybe just give folks just another minute or two before we get into things. And I guess while we're waiting, I will go ahead and explain for those who aren't familiar what ConductorOne is. So ConductorOne is a modern identity governance platform. We like to say we're building the future of identity governance. So what that means to us, identity governance traditionally has been hard to implement, hard to get your whole environment integrated, expensive, and not necessarily security first. So we've built a platform that tries to solve for all those problems. We integrate with your entire system, whether that's a simple cloud system or a very complex enterprise hybrid system with cloud and on-prem and legacy and homegrown systems. We can connect to all of it. We think that's really important to security, that you have all of your systems in one place where you can see what's going on and control it. Then we give you access controls, access reviews, just-in-time access, things that allow you to govern your compliance needs and also just make sure everyone's secure. We want it to be super easy to use, really easy to deploy, and then have your users, whether those are your admins or your end users, all actually just really enjoy using the product so that they want to use it and do the right things in it. Yeah, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We just want to make IT and security teams able to secure their workforces and reduce their workloads and do it in a secure way. All right, it's 12:02, so I think we can go ahead and get started. So let's see. Before that, just wanted to let you know, if you do want to know more about ConductorOne and you want to see it in person, not just on your computer screen, we are hosting some events at RSA. So if you're going to be in San Francisco next week, please come see us in person. We'd love to see you. I think we're going to have a link in the chat here soon that will link you to a landing page where you can register for any of our wonderful events next week, and we'd love to see you. Of course, if you're not going to be with us and you'd like to talk to us, you can always book a demo with our team. All right, so we're going to get into, today we're going to be talking about ConductorOne's policy engine, which I know does not sound like the most exciting thing, but actually to us, it is probably one of the most exciting parts of our platform. Not sexy, but very cool. So Charles is going to tee us up and then we'll jump into a demo.
Yeah, so the major thing I want to get across here is, ConductorOne has a lot of functionality, but underlying that functionality, we have tasks, and the tasks really govern what's going to happen for any of these things. If someone's requesting access, how do we decide whether or not they should have that access? Should it be determined automatically? Should it go through a particular individual? And that applies for requests, revocations, or reviews. So underlying that, how do we make those decisions? How do we modernize IGA? What we're going to use is the ConductorOne policy engine. So we have 3 different policy types. We have the request policy type, the revoke policy type, and review policy type. Reviews would come into play if you're having a campaign, user access review, determine where to shunt the decision, whether access should be kept or revoked for a particular user at a point in time, current or in the past. For revocations, right, that's going to be if a decision is made on that review or in some other scenario, how do we revoke? Sometimes you don't want to revoke immediately. Sometimes you want to wait. You want to go ask the app manager if this person's transitioning from one role to another. Let's make sure that they should lose access because we might still need their help, right? And then probably one of the more common ones is the request policy. So these policies then drive action. What's going to happen with a particular request? Are we going to auto approve it, auto deny it based on RBAC, attributes of that user? Or are we going to, how are we going to assign this for an app owner or a manager review or someone different altogether? So just the policies are the first step in anything that happens in an automated way in ConductorOne. Is the big thing I want to get across to everyone here. So with that, let's jump into ConductorOne. Sure, I'm sharing the right screen. So here we have ConductorOne. Right now I'm wearing my user hat. I want to make a request to something. In ConductorOne, you can do this through your terminal, you can do it through Slack, and you can do it through our web interface. For today, I'm going to do it through web interface. I'll click on Manage Access. For the purposes of our demo, I'm going to go into AWS. We'll just pick a grant out of here, and we'll say, we'll give a reason for our access, and we'll request access. That's going to generate a request task that we just talked about. And the first step for that request task is to go through our policy engine. Cool, like auto approve, that's nice. I didn't have to go look up a database to find out who I was supposed to Slack or email. And if that role even still existed, follow up with my manager to see who to go to. I was automatically approved. But the question is, why was I automatically approved? So we can see here, I have this policy, engine room auto approve. Let's go look deeper here. So leaving my user hat and putting on my administrator one, we're going to go into the administration section of ConductorOne. We have all of our policies in the same place here through the left nav bar, and I'm just going to look for that policy. So this was a request policy. If I click on this, what do I see? Well, I see an auto approval. This is effectively what happens when your users have access today. When someone is a super administrator because they might need it at some point, they're basically, every time they log in, they are auto approved. What we want to do is lower that barrier of entry for people to get the permissions they need while also lowering your attack surface. And so policies is a big way to do this. So let's tighten this up. Let's make it a little bit harder, or at least put some guardrails around how people access a critical role. So we have our baseline rule. The baseline rule just says, look, in the use case where none of the context that ConductorOne provides about our users can help us make a choice, what do we want to do? We have lots of options when it comes to our policy engine. We can go to a particular user. We can ping a particular group of users. We can go to that user's manager, to the account owner of the particular grant being asked for the app owner, the entitlement owner, the resource owner. We can use expressions if we have very dynamic requirements, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. Or let's say you want to do something dynamic, like I want to go check if an IT ticket is open, or I want to go use agentic AI to help me make a decision on this user. We will forward the context of the user and the ask out to a system that you can control and make smart decisions with. For the purposes of our example today, I'm going to say we're going to stick with app owner. Now we have lots of other options here for this particular app owner. If that app owner is busy, are they able to reassign this task? If they reassign this task, do they need to leave a reason for it? You may also notice that we allow a limitation on who it can go to, right? You don't want them to just be able to say, okay, like, we'll just send it off to dusty old Charles. We need someone who legitimately should be able to do this. Should people be able to self-review? Most of our customers don't want self-review, but where it makes sense, allow it. If this were to come across, if I were to make a request and I could self-review this, it would automatically just push me through. I don't then have to click out and approve myself, etc. So it is smart in that way. But if not, I would need to reassign that task. Finally, justifications. if someone is making a decision on the granting of an entitlement, should they have to give a reason for approval or denial? Conductor One will provide you with quick tags you can use to give information, but you can always write out a longer length explanation for why you made the choice you made. Finally, we just released step-up authentication. So if this is, if we have a particularly interesting or important or high-risk entitlement, and you want people to prove their identity at the moment that they are making a decision, we can do step-up authentication. Today, that's to Entra or any other OAuth utility. So let's stick with app owner as our baseline rule. But maybe I don't want this poor app owner to spend all day approving and denying requests. That's not modern. You know, it's better. Now we're automatically routing this person to the right resource to request access, but it's not faster, it's not more efficient. So how do we make things better? Well, we can add conditional policy. So, for example, in Conductor One, you will have your directory or a set of directories. Those directories can be enriched by attributes that come from third-party applications. So let's say you have data that what department is this person in, and that's separate from your directory. Great. We can map from that application over to the directory that we're using to sign into Conductor One and make these requests. And so that gives us a lot of power. I can say things like, if this user's department is engineering, auto approve. But if we were going to do that, what we'd probably want to do is have an access profile and use the join, remove, reliever functionality of Conductor One, where if they're in engineering, they should just have access. Great. That feels like standing access. Let's give it to them. In our scenario, we're trying to time box access. So let's go deeper here. Instead of just being in engineering and getting access to the customer database, we should probably also make sure that this person is on call. Conductor One works with operations platforms to understand the context of an individual in that moment. So we're not limited to just like RBAC, the traditional RBAC indices. We are getting information from other data sources, and you're able to apply them right here in the policy itself. There are other powers that we can add here as well. So if we wanted to make sure that this person that's on call or this person that's in engineering is trained before they're accessing this, we could make a different rule. We could say department is engineering, and they have the they're in a trained entitlement. Awesome. Now, instead of going to the app owner, maybe all we need to do is go to that user's manager. We'll set a fallback, and we'll just leave the rest of these settings as they are. So now, instead of going to the app owner and bothering them, we know this person is in a department that generally speaking, could get this access. But we want to make sure that we've safeguarded ourselves and that person has been trained before they do it. There are even more advanced capabilities. So if we wanted to, we can, I was talking about this a moment ago, but we can use cell expression. Cell expression is just a simple single line language where you can look at various aspects or do advanced things. So if you want to assign to a manager's manager, for example, you can use Excel expression to traverse your organizational structure or to make smarter decisions on where something should go if there is a plethora of context that's required there that doesn't fit in a simple and or. One of the other pieces that we see used here fairly often is the need to wait for a particular condition. So this again could be training or some other scenario where it's like, okay, if somebody asks for access, we'll give it to them, but we need to make sure that that person has a particular entitlement first. Let's say in my example it was training. We can set that condition, we can name it, have a post, and then if it's waiting longer than a period of time, deny them. Hey, go get your training done and come back and ask me again. Now, if this were to be granted based on just their role, but they need to ask for it, maybe not everyone in that role needs it, we can wait until we know we're safe before we provision that access. Have we gotten any questions yet? Let me come over in here and look.
No questions. I saw some thumbs up though.
Great. Anyone in the room have any questions, anything that they run up against today that they wish they could solve? We'll give it a second and see how vocal we are today on this Thursday. Okay, so feel free to jump in anytime. Great. So now we have this policy. We've improved it. How can we apply these policies to our entitlements? So if I come over to my application, by just updating this here, we've updated that policy that I ran through. So anyone who is asking for database access in AWS, that policy is automatically updated from this point on. But maybe I really like this policy I just made and I want to apply it other places. What you can do is come into an application, go into the entitlements, and we can grab, for example, billing access. And here I can apply this policy by coming into access requests and setting a particular policy. We have a hierarchical model, so what's going to happen with this is we will check this particular entitlement to see if there is a rule for it. If not, we'll back out to the application and see if there's a rule in the application. And if not, we'll go to the app owner. So by default, you're always going to the app owner, but we can change that at an individual level for the higher risk entitlements or at a higher level if we're, keeping our Terraform short. Okay, so other things to point out here, policy doesn't end with the policy engine. We're able to set on entitlements additional configuration. If someone is requesting access to a particular entitlement, we can say things like, actually, you know what? There's a use case where there's break glass here. People shouldn't be using it every day, but if it's the middle of the night, we know something's going wrong, we should allow people to get access through a different truncated route. So if you turn on emergency access, that will then enable users to say, hey, this is an emergency, please give me access. Similarly, a lot of these grants, what we're trying to move away from is standing access and move towards least privilege. How many times have you had access and decided you are going to remove yourself from that role or put in an IT ticket to have yourself removed from that role? I would guess not very often. So what Conductor One provides you is max grant duration. We can, for a particular or a set of entitlements, we can say, hey, look, this is grantable for an hour, 12 hours, a day, a week, some longer period of time. That way, the person gets access. If they need, they can extend that request via Slack or Cone or through our user interface. And it will run again through that policy. But at the end of that grant duration, we will automatically pull back that access. So you don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about it. The poor IT desk doesn't have to worry about it. The last thing I'll note here is we are able to set our request policies or revocation policies, emergency access, max grant duration. There are places in this platform, last week we talked about access profiles, where you can override policies. You can say, hey, when we are allotting this set of entitlements to this group, just use this policy. Well, if this was a particularly important entitlement, we can lock this configuration and say, no matter what, this needs to go to Brittany, our CEO, right? It's got to go to her. And so we can lock that down and make sure that nothing overrides it throughout the system, keeping ourselves safe, making sure those highest of risk entitlements aren't being given out unduly. One of the other interesting paths that I didn't necessarily show you here today is with max grant duration, we can have different paths. So let's say that we made max grant duration a month. Well, if it's going to be if someone's going to request a shorter period, let's say a day to do some amount of work, using that cell expression, we can say, hey, if someone has requested this for under 1 day, go ahead and ask their manager and be done with it. But if they're asking for a month, we need to go get their manager's approval, and then we need to go get that app owner approval. So lots and lots of flexibility to achieve our goals. We use the emergency policy. Someone is on call, the request will go to the on-call incident manager instead of their manager. This limits the workflow to employees who are on call and expected to watch their phones for pings. That's a great use case. Wish I'd used it. Thank you, Jeffrey, for bringing that up.
Yeah, we've got a question. And I've got a question too. So this one is, we have a lot of cloud access to manage. How can you use policies to manage elevated access for, say, like AWS?
How can you use policies to manage elevated access for AWS?
Yeah.
So, right. So you have lots of entitlements. You don't want to go through and maybe set this on every single entitlement. We have a couple different options. You can bulk. So maybe if there's some subset of this, I can bulk and just do a few. I can also manage these controls again here from the application level. So I can say anything that comes, any request that comes through for this particular application, let's forward it through our engine room policy that we just created today.
And maybe speak about, we haven't talked about revocation policies, but what would be maybe a use case for having different revocation
policies? I mentioned this a little bit earlier today, but I know one of the use cases that I've seen before is somebody, especially in the joiner mover leaver scenario, they're leaving a team, maybe they're moving, they're going to try out a new thing in your company, but they were like the go-to person for that team to get help, to diagnose customer issues, etc. So when they move, our joiner mover capabilities are going to automatically, potentially, pull back their access. What you can do, though, is put in a revoke policy that says, actually, hold it. Before we revoke for this particular access profile or for this particular entitlement, we want to go to an app owner, to the app owner, and say, are we really ready for this resource to lose this entitlement? I know I've had support people in the past too. If I lost them, I would be lost. So yeah. Making sure we're not retracting grants before we should.
Awesome. Yeah, the amount of control is really the key here. And maybe not everybody is using Terraform, but we do have some customers who use Terraform, and that's available. Maybe speak just a little bit to the use case there.
Yeah, so this is actually coming up frequently. I think just about every other customer we talk to today is saying, we don't need our administrators going into the platform and clicking around. How can we automate the creation of access profiles, of policies? How can we make sure that someone isn't going in there and just changing settings? You know, before we change things, we need to go through an approval process and then launch those changes after they've been staged. So we have an extensive Terraform. We just rolled out version 2. If you have any questions, I highly suggest you reach out to me or Ali or someone on the team, and we can fill you in on the details. But it really gives you the capability to automate via scripting to determine what your environment should look like. or update based on what your environment should look like. So we have one customer, they have a lot of GitHub repositories. Those repositories and their permissions change frequently. They're implementing a script through the help of our own Matthew Scoble to automatically manage, create, delete access profiles as their repos change and evolve through time.
Yeah, super cool. I know people are excited about V2 with Terraform. And I know for some of our customers too, the use case there from a compliance point of view is if you're using Terraform, your policies are written in code, and if that code has gone through the various code checks, then your auditors are super happy with.
Right.
Yeah. Great. I didn't mention at the beginning, but this will be recorded. So for those of you who are here, if you want to rewatch this, we'll send it out to you, and please feel free to share it too with other folks who might find it interesting. We've got a few more minutes if anybody has more questions. I know I said the policies weren't interesting, seem like they're not interesting, but Charles, you make everything interesting. But they're just so powerful. I mean, that's just scratching the surface of what you can do with them. And back to the platform just being intentionally built to be as flexible as possible so people can really customize it in an easy way to fit their security policies, their business, their environment.
And in the future, we're going to bring Thomas. So you'll be able to have CI or ConductorOne hosted agentic AI who can help you make decisions. So you can say things like, you saw in my request earlier today, and maybe on an earlier engine room, that I could just put in whatever I wanted. I could justify my decisions however I wanted. Well, that's a perfect use case for agentic AI. You'd say, hey, don't actually let someone just say, because please. Make them say, oh, well, I need it for this ticket, or I need it because my manager's out and I need to help manage our new users who are coming on, right? Things like that, forcing, allowing there to be that first path where it's like, okay, does it make sense what they're asking for? Okay, now I'll go bother the manager. Now I'll go bother the app owner.
Right.
And with that, as a second step, we're going to be rolling out MCPs. So you will be able to, that agentic AI will be able to call on resources that you provide it to make decisions. So I've coded a webhook in the past that will look at a suggestion and say, what's the ticket? Is there a ticket number? If there is, does it exist? And if it exists, is it open? And that can be, and that's the first step. Like, let's make sure that they're working on something. Well, with Thomas, you don't have to do that scripting, right? You just hand it off the AI. You give the AI the tools to do the work that you need done. And with some simple language, you have a web service of your own deployed all through ConductorOne just by using your keyboard.
Super powerful.
Yeah.
Super powerful. All right, we are right at time. Take a look at the chat. We've got the link to our RSA events there. We'd love to see all of you. Please join us, or like I said, reach out to us if you can't be in San Francisco. We'd love to talk to you anytime. And we'll see you on the last Thursday of May for the next Engine Room. And also, I should just say, if you have any requests for what you want us to cover, let us know. We're always happy to cover what you guys are interested in. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, everyone.